When was it that you realized that this wasn't normal?
It was as an adult. It was when I had a child of my own. And looking back, it feels a bit embarrassing that I didn't realize that these were all lies. And what happens is that when we are in an echo chamber and we don't have anyone doubting our story, and when we're told to keep things secret, there isn't a lot to challenge it. So what happened is that as an adult, I wanted to know the truth for myself. That became very important to me, that I didn't just believe someone else's stories. I believed what they told me, but I wanted to see the evidence. And I was told that there was so much evidence, that there were boxes and boxes of documented, like, medical reports of all the horrible things that had happened to me. And so as an adult, I asked to see those for myself. And I was completely shut down. My grandmother, my mother said, "No way. You're not going to see those. It'll probably trigger your brain. You'll be under the power of Satan. Like, there's no way." So, Aaron, I did the first sneaky thing in my entire life. And I went and I looked at these boxes of, in quotes, evidence for myself. And there were boxes and boxes, but not with evidence inside. It was just like letters that my dad had written wanting to see his kids. It was all this documentation of the divorce, but nothing about any abuse. And then I found this big, thick packet, and it was a training packet for police officers, and how police officers can recognize satanic worship stuff. And I opened this packet, and on the first page, it talked about, well, Satan worshipers do everything opposite from what God wants us to. So instead of baptizing children in water, they baptize them in blood. And I'm like, oh, I was told that I was baptized in blood. Then I turned the page. Every single thing that it listed in this training manual that was nothing about me, everything that was listed in this packet was something that I had been told had specifically happened to me. And it became very clear that this was material that they made up the story from, but there was absolutely nothing that linked reality and what I'd been told to, like, the real story. There was nothing to support that any of this had happened to me. And I realized that there's no way that this can be true.
That's wild. You that reminds me. What did you study in college?
I studied psychology, interestingly enough, and that was another piece of the truth breaking through, because in psychology, you study about false memories, and you study about how even if something didn't happen, when you have a high pressure person, especially in isolation, telling you that you've done something or that something has happened, people tend to start believing it. And I started learning about things historically that had happened, like the satanic panic of the 80s, where it wasn't just me, that so many people believed there was this secret group of Satan worshipers that controlled all sorts of media and children's toys and government and police and this whole conspiracy theory. And that was a really important thing for me to study, especially because I started learning about how the human brain works and how you can have emotions based off of a story that you believe that isn't true. And I started connecting the dots for myself.
Not only that, but the barriers, the things that you were taught, the beliefs that were ingrained in your mind were so strong that even in college, studying this stuff, it didn't immediately occur to you. It's like we block out what doesn't fit our paradigm, and because I always wonder how if you're in a cult and you're being told one thing, but then you are in the outside world, and the outside world is a different shade of truth. How do you reconcile that? But these things that we tell ourselves, the things that we've been told as children, it's very powerful.
Yes, and we're taught to trust the people that we think love us more than anything. Like, why would I question something that my mother, who I thought loved me, would tell me? Why would someone that loved me, lie to me? So it's these sorts of questions that oftentimes just don't come up. We don't challenge the information that comes from people that we love. And especially when you grow up before the internet, you don't really have information that pops up for you or that you can search to find out these sorts of things. I think it's so powerful that now we have so much information that is available to us, because before that, it was very much you only get information from the people that you talk to in real life.
I thought that you'd discovered the police manual in your studies, not in your snooping around in your family's basement. Your mom had used a training manual as a how-to manual. That's wild. So let's continue on, though. You have this realization that your whole world view, your old religious view, your whole family view has been, I guess, tampered with what objective reality really is. How did you deal with that, and how did you move forward?
Yes, first I talked to my family. I told them what I'd done, and I said, GMOS, what I called my grandmother, and my mom. I found all the boxes and there is no evidence. And at first, especially because I've been taught to suppress emotions my whole life, I didn't feel anger or rage at first. I was just confused. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to understand. I said, if you didn't know any of this had happened, why did you tell me this is true? Why did you say there was evidence if there is no evidence? And they completely shut it down. They said, we're not going to talk about it. It'll trigger your brain. We would rather you think that we lied to you than talk about this and lose you to the power of Satan for the rest of time. And they just completely shut it down. So I went first to them. And then I understood that I had been lied to. And I learned one of the most important lessons that has turned into a mission where we've helped over 9,000 people to heal, which is you can remove yourself from a bad situation and it will follow you if you don't know how to truly leave internally. So even though I distanced myself from my family and I intellectually knew that all of this was a lie, the fear was still there. The fear was still driving the decisions. The I have to hide was still driving what I chose to do with my life. And the way that I really left is understanding the neuroscience principles of how to not just physically leave a bad situation, but how to fully deprogram, how to not let your past pollute your present and to really leave that behind. So the first step was coming to my truth. And then I needed to really understand how to heal and to move forward and to not get stuck in a healing cycle for the rest of my life, which a lot of times happens if you've come from a bad situation, is we tend to think of the healing journey as forevermore, and we don't move forward with our purpose and our true light.